You're listening to the School of Hard Knock Knocks podcast with me, Maury Morgan.
Ladies and gentlemen, your next comedian.
Shouldn't drink on an empty head, you know that, don't you?
That is the shittiest heckle I have ever heard in my life.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
What's a bucket list?
You have dangerously underprepared yourself for the shit that is about to get real.
18 months ago, Evan Hocking became a full-time comedian. Leaving a permanent job, Evan packed the job in and took the biggest leap of faith a comedian can make in his or her early years. Since then, he hasn't looked back, performing solo shows at the 2016 and 2017 Melbourne International Comedy Festivals, with Evan as a Place on Earth and The Morning After, respectively. But it's not all pizzazz. If you're a budding stand-up comedian just starting out, this interview with Evan is great because you'll learn about the early challenges and stresses facing new comedians. You'll also get an understanding of the level of commitment to self-promotion and marketing that is needed to be noticed in a very busy market. Evan Hocking is extremely honest and transparent, so I think you'll enjoy this interview. I'm here with Evan Hocking. Evan, how are you, mate?
I'm very good, Maury. How are you, mate?
Good. Now, Evan, you've just come out of the Melbourne International Comedy Festival with your show, The Morning After. No, it's not. What's this show called?
Yeah, no, you're right the first time.
Oh, for some reason, that just makes me think of pregnancy.
No, I know. A few people were disappointed when they saw the show and realised it wasn't. So, it was about a 2-week period 6 years ago where I went on a bit of a bender and made a mistake, which cost me a little bit. So yeah, it was good fun, good show. I was down at the Hotel Barclay down in St Kilda and did 12 shows, and I was happy with how the show came together, mate.
And do you go into detail about that bender that cost you something?
Yeah, basically that's the narrative through the show.
Right. And the show itself is not a good behaviour bond or community service.
No.
You're not paying back because of... No.
No, well, I hope not. I haven't got any letters. I just got paid from all my ticket sales, so hopefully I don't have to give it back.
Very good. I want to talk to you specifically about a great leap of faith, ultimately. You've been, in the last 18 months, you've gone full-time stand-up comedian.
Yep.
And I want to talk to you about that jump. So let's go back. Let's backtrack a little bit. We've jumped into the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, but let's go back to the beginning. You're from Mooroolbark, eastern suburbs of Melbourne.
Yeah, I grew up in Mooroolbark, and I actually did a few stand-up gigs in 2007. A few just sort of open mics. I'm not sure how many I did, but no, not many, and never really progressed much. But then I moved up to Port Douglas for 4 years at the start of 2008. And while I was up there, I did a little bit of MC stuff, local radio. So I was sort of my passion for stand-up and the creativity, I sort of got that through the radio, what I could do there, and also just the footy club on Thursday nights, and then sort of players' reviews and things like that. So I guess I was always sort of performing without actually doing straight stand-up, if you know what I mean. But then obviously moved back to Melbourne the very end of 2011, started 2012, and it was probably October 2012 where I thought, maybe I'll just have one last crack at the stand-ups.
Yeah. And where'd you go? Where was the crack at?
I went to the workshops at the Comics Lounge, and then I sort of just went around the Melbourne scene and was doing open mics here and there. But yeah, I probably even didn't really commit to it fully with other commitments till I guess maybe, I don't know, a year and a half, where I thought, all right, I've got to try and get out every night, hone my material, and maybe get to a point where I could maybe get some paid work out of it, yeah. And
so at one point in time, you decided, that's it, I'm going 100% full-time. That was 18 months ago. What was the switch?
Yeah. So basically what I got to a point where I was getting offered work, on Thursdays, sort of Fridays, work during the day. And a few times I had to, with my boss at my job, I sort of had to Well, I told a few lies actually and said I was going away with mates or something, and I went up and did gigs up in Mildura and that with the Nelson twins and Bobby Franklin, and then I got to work on Monday, and one of the blokes at work, he said, "Oh, were you doing gigs up in Mildura?" I said, "Oh, yeah," and he said, "Oh yeah, bloody Terry, the boss, found out." He said, "Oh, he's got to decide whether he's a comedian or a sprinkler fitter." So there were little signs there where I thought, "Oh, well, bugger this." To be honest, I don't want to be a sprinkler fitter. So, yeah, it just got to a point where the work, I was getting more and more work, and I thought I can either jump in and have one real go at it. So I just decided October 2015 to just pack the job in and do comedy full time. Yeah.
All right. Well, Terry, if you're listening to this podcast,
thanks for having us, mate. But I don't think I'm coming back anytime soon.
So you get out of sprinkler fittings. You decide I'm going to go full time. Earlier you mentioned Bob Franklin and going up to Mildura. Was Bob Franklin an early influence, or who kind of pushed you?
I guess what it was, I guess it was watching stand up. I probably didn't start going to much live stand up till probably around 2006, I reckon. And I reckon that might be which gave me. Because I always used to muck around at the football club and on the microphone and things like that. And then I started watching a little bit of just Aussie stand-up and going to certain gigs around the place. And I thought, maybe I could write some jokes and this and that. So I think that's where the initial dipping the toe in the water, around 2007, doing a few open mics.
Yeah. So you just mentioned football. Your brother is Heath Hocking. He's a AFL footy player for Essendon. Yeah.
So he's been on the list now for maybe 11 or 12 years, and he obviously had the year off last year. With I'm sure a lot of people, even if they don't like footy, they know why that was. But it was because of that supplement saga. But since then, he's only played the one game this year. I'm actually going to watch him today out at Arden Street. He's in the two, so he's fighting to get his spot back. But it's been a tough few years for him, but it's been all right. I've got a few jokes out of it.
Yeah, I imagine. You've gone from sort of doing it part-time with a full-time job, and then you've gone, I'm going to do it full-time. Was this year your first Melbourne International Comedy Festival show?
No, I did a show last year. That was 2016. So that was Evan is a Place on Earth. That was my first solo show. Mm-hmm. And before that, I dipped the toe in the water with split shows, and there'd be three people. You do 15 minutes or something like that, which is a good way to split your costs. You start building up a bit of stage time. So this is my second solo show. So, like I said, I found that pretty tough going from your first solo show where I'd sort of had 3.5 to 4 years of material that had sort of built up.
Yep.
To all of a sudden you start fresh and you've got to do a whole new, 45 to 50 minutes. Yeah. But the challenge was good and I enjoyed it.
Was there a particular night that was better than the rest?
Well, I think the last night I learned a lot from the year before, because I think the year before I had a really good show maybe 2 or 3 nights in, and I felt like every night had to be like that. Mm. So if for some reason it felt like, okay, this joke didn't get as big a laugh, I wasn't stressed, but I was just disappointed, where this year, once I had the show sort of set maybe 3 or 4 nights in, I really just enjoyed telling the story and presenting it to the crowd. And I think I realised that like every night was going to be different no matter what. So, but I really enjoyed the last night. Yep. It was probably the biggest crowd I'd had out of the whole 12 nights. It felt like it was a bit of a conclusion to the festival. I could really just enjoy doing the show. Yeah.
I was talking to Brad Oakes, who's you may know the name. He's been a 28-year veteran. He's also interviewed on the School of Hard Knocks podcast, and he was talking about the magic 45 minutes. So basically, if you want to have your own show, as you have just done twice now, you need to hit 45 minutes. How do you develop that solid material? Where are you? Are you playing footy? Are you walking down the street? Do you sit down at a desk? How do you develop that content?
Well, for this show specifically, it was the idea for the show started probably. Well, it started 6 years ago when I did this, but I didn't think I'd ever be telling it on stage. But the actual idea for the show, I was telling the story of what I did to a few comedian mates just after a gig, and I basically told the story how it happened. And like, mate, that's hilarious. You got to tell that on stage.
Right.
So that was probably about that would have been 2 years ago, and well, maybe even 3. But I thought, is it something that I could do on stage? And it probably wasn't until Fringe Festival last year in Melbourne in September where I just told the story, how it happened, to see if it's something I could tell on stage. And the story was entertaining and funny, but yeah, obviously I had a lot of work to do to turn it into a show, and that was the challenge. So a lot of it revolved around sitting down and writing and restructuring, and that was probably the hard work, you know. Like the idea was already there, the story, but turning it into a show, that's the challenge, and that's the hard part,
And did you have anyone to bounce these ideas off while you're building the show?
Yeah, well, funny you mentioned I sat down with Oaksy a bit. I enjoy catching up with him, and obviously his experience really helps. Yeah, so it's good, I think, when you can work with other people, because you might be looking at something from one way and they'll just throw an idea in and they'll go, oh, yeah, I never thought of looking at it like that. So, so Oaksy helped out a lot. It was good just to catch up with him and chat about a few things. And
what do you do when you have a heckler? How do you deal with that?
I think a lot of the time these hecklers, they haven't put too much thought into their heckle. So, I mean, if you're quick enough, you can always sort of respond with something, and there's different ways. Sometimes, you know, you can just settle them down. Other times you can have a crack back at them. But on a whole, you know, most of the time, unless a heckler's really good, they sort of just distract from the show a lot of the time. So, yeah, engaging with them sometimes can work, sometimes it doesn't.
Yep.
But in the end, I think, like I said, unless a heckler's really, really funny, they sort of just can distract from the actual show, and people almost want them to shut up anyway.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, thinking about, you know, your career, your stand-up career, and jumping 18 months ago into a full-time role in stand-up comedy, is there one or two pieces of advice that you could give to budding comedians or people who are about to embark on stand-up comedy? Maybe they're currently listening to this podcast as they're fitting sprinkler systems in some apartment or office.
Yeah.
Sorry, Terry.
Yeah. Now, what I would say, and by all means, I'm still very new to the whole to comedy. You know, you're like basically coming up 5 years in October. So, mate, don't take this for gospel or anything like that. And by all means, there's so many different ways to do things. But I guess just if you're passionate about what you do and you really want to do it, you'll find ways to get work. And sometimes necessarily work that you get doesn't you'll get a job, you'll get a gig, you'll get paid for it, but you'll go, I didn't really enjoy it, but you did the job, you got paid, and that's what it's about when you're doing it full time. You know, you can't always. I just did a talk yesterday with a few comedians for a few screenwriters, and we were talking about finding your voice and saying what you want to say on stage and being who you want to be. And that's great. And I think in your festival shows and you know, certain gigs you can do that, but also there's times where you've just got to do the job, make people laugh. There's no real point to getting real deep and having a point to your set. Sometimes, like a small corporate gig, or sometimes at a footy club or a Bucks party or something. You just got to do what you can do to make sure you get paid and to make people laugh and do the job. But also look outside. There's so much work out there. You just got to find where you might be able to get it from, you know. So I guess early on I knew that I had contacts within sporting clubs. So if I can buy some sound gear and whatever. I can set up my own gigs, and then I can filter, pro guys and headline acts in, and then slowly as I build my material, then I can start emceeing those gigs, and then hopefully get to a point, years down the track where maybe I could headline or something like that. So,
and you've touched on an important point, that is that you have really taken ownership of your career. I've looked at other comedians, some who have even got more years of experience than yourself, but they're not as active out there promoting themselves. For example, you've got a podcast, The Good Old Days. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you also do video though as well.
Yeah, I decided to just cut up some videos for promoting my festival show. I thought, it's just something different, that it's a little bit of content that it sort of it gave a little bit of an insight into what the show's about without giving it away too much. So I guess video's another way to get out there. There's a lot of guys who are big on YouTube who maybe, they've even probably been doing comedy like even less than me, but they've got maybe more followers or build an audience. Yeah, so I guess if you look at it, you just got to work out who are going to be the people who are going to come to see you, and that's hard as well. Especially early on, you think, why would people want to come see me over someone else? I guess it's a hard thing, but yeah, and comedy, I guess it's in a way it's your own business, so you sort of got to constantly promote yourself. And I probably even have to do more of that.
Very good. Well, I think we'll be following you. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, I particularly like your story because it is early stages. 18 months ago, you've jumped out of the small fish bowl into a larger, maybe a tank with sharks in there and poisonous jellyfish. You've got more competition. You're only as good as your last performance now. You can't go back and ask Terry for a raise or more overtime. Yeah. This is it. This is your career. Yeah. And if someone wants to get hold of you, what's the best way that they can do that?
I've got a Facebook page, Evan Hocking Comedian, or just Evan Hocking. Email address, so evan@classiccomedycompany.com. Get us on email or get in touch with you, Maury, or something like that.
Oh, no worries. Good. Well, fantastic. So, Evan, the School of Hard Knock Knocks will be following your career because I think it's a good signpost. Leave us little messages on the way as our up-and-coming stand-up comedians following your footsteps.
Great,
Let us know which track to take, which path to take.
Yeah, thanks, Maury. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Welcome.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
Cheers, mate. Bye.